So in this video, we are going to learn about SSH dynamic port forwarding, which allows us to create something called a SOCKS proxy. But before we start the lab, there are a few important concepts we need to know. So the first is port forwarding. Port forwarding simply means redirecting traffic from one port to another destination. And then we have dynamic port forwarding, which is a flexible version of port forwarding. So with dynamic port forwarding, instead of forwarding just one specific port, it allows you to forward traffic to any destination. And then we have tunnels. A tunnel in networking is like a secret pipe. So imagine you want to send water from your house to another house. Instead of, say, you're just pouring it outside where everyone can see it, you build a hidden underground pipe. That pipe is a tunnel. So in networking, a tunnel is a secure pathway that carries traffic from one machine to another. Then we have SSH tunneling. So we know SSH, or secure shell, lets you log into another machine securely. But SSH can also create tunnels. So SSH tunneling means using SSH to create a secure encrypted pipe that forwards traffic between machines. So instead of sending traffic openly, it travels inside the SSH connection. The next thing is a SOCKS proxy. A proxy is a middleman. So instead of going directly to a website, you go through the proxy first. A SOCKS proxy is a special type of proxy that can forward almost any kind of traffic, whether it's web traffic or database traffic or any other kind of traffic. So when we combine everything, which is SSH plus dynamic port forwarding, we get a SOCKS proxy tunnel. So that's what today's lab is about. The goal of this lab is to create an SSH tunnel, turn it into a SOCKS proxy, use it to access internal services, and then we compare our real IP versus the proxy IP address. This simulates something that is called pivoting. Pivoting means we're using one machine to move deeper into a network. So for our setup, we have two machines. We have the attacker's machine on Kali and Ubuntu, which is the victim's machine. The victim's machine can access internal services, but Kali cannot access them directly. So we are going to use the victim's machine as a bridge. Now we've been given some steps to follow. I'm going to copy the first command here and I'll paste it on the victim's machine. What this command does is that systemctl manages the system services and start SSH starts the SSH server. So we have to run this because Kali needs something to connect to. If SSH isn't running, there's no tunnel. When we press enter, we see here active running, which means that SSH is running and the victim is listening on a port 22. Port 22 is the default port that is used by SSH. Next thing we are going to do is to create the SOCKS proxy from the attacker's machine. I'll go to step 2, copy this command, and then I'll paste it here. So what this command is doing is SSH here starts the secure connection. D1080 here creates the dynamic port forwarding on the port 1080. Admin at 192.168.1.100 connects to the victim. When we see this -D, we are telling SSH to create a SOCKS proxy on the local machine. When we press enter, we see here dynamic forwarding established on localhost 1080. So port 1080 is normally used for SOCKS proxies, but you can use another port like 9999 if you want to. So here, any traffic that is sent to the port 1080 will go through the SSH tunnel and it will come out of the victim's machine. So when you see this line, it means that the tunnel has been created and the SOCKS proxy is active. The next thing we're going to do is to test, and we'll be testing with curl. So I'll go to step 3, copy this command, and paste it here on the attacker's machine. So for this command, curl is the tool that is used to request the web pages. SOCKS 5 uses the SOCKS proxy. It's telling the command to use the SOCKS proxy. Localhost 1080 is our proxy, and internal web.local is the internal website. So without the proxy, Kali cannot access the site. When we press enter, we get this. Oh, sorry, we get this. 200 OK simply tells us that the website responded and we have successfully accessed an internal service. And this proves that pivoting is working. We can also see that there's something content type. This tells us that the content that we got back is an HTML web page. And the size here, 1024, means that the body of the response is 1024 bytes long. And then after that, we see the HTML code. Normally, a browser should show this visually. But since we use curl, we are seeing the raw HTML file here. Now we have to prove who we appear to be. I'm going to copy this command. I'll copy this and paste it on the attacker's machine. So what this command does is it is going to show the attacker's public IP. When I press enter, it shows 203.0.113.45. That's the attacking machine's IP address. Now I'll copy the second part of the command. Or the second command, sorry, and paste it here. And when we press enter, we see that the IP address is 192.168.1.100, which is the IP address of the victim's machine. So this proves that without proxy, the internet sees the attacker's machine. It sees the Kali machine. But with the proxy, it sees the victim. So now we are browsing as the victim. So at this point, we are no longer outside the network. We are working from inside the victim's network. In this video, we are learning about SSH local and remote port forwarding. The goal of this lab is to use SSH as a secure tunnel. So instead of just logging into another machine, we are going to use SSH to forward traffic from one port to another, almost like building a secret underground pipe between two computers. Sometimes services are running internally on a machine, but they are not exposed to the outside world. Port forwarding allows us to access these services safely and securely. So by the end of this lab, we'll be able to access an internal service using local port forwarding. We'll create a reverse tunnel using remote port forwarding and understand how SSH secretly moves traffic from one machine to another. So we've been given some steps to follow, and I'll start with step 1, running the command systemctl start SSH. What this command does is to simply start the SSH service on the victim machine. Without this, no one can connect to the machine using SSH. When I press enter, we see here active running. That tells us that SSH is up and running. So we're good to go. The next thing is to start an internal service. We'll go to step 2, copy this command and paste it here on the victim's machine again. NC stands for netcat. L means listen. P80 means listen on the port 80. Port 80 is the default web port. So when I press enter, we see here internal service listener started on port 80 and listening on 0.0.0 port 80 here as well. So what it means is that our internal service is running. Now the victim machine is pretending to be a web server running internally. Now we are going to try local port forwarding. I'll copy the third command, and this time we'll post it on the attacker's machine. Now for this command, L here stands for local port forwarding. What this command is doing is opening port 8080 on the local machine and forwarding anything that comes to it to the port 80 on the remote internal service. So when we press enter here, this is what we see. This tells us that the channel has been created successfully. Local port forwarding established. Now we're going to test it with the curl command for step 5. So I'll copy this and paste it on the attacker's machine. When we press enter, we see here 200 OK. We've successfully accessed through SSH local port forwarding. So the command is just proving that it worked. We accessed an internal service through a secure SSH tunnel. Now for the next command, we are going to be using this command for step 4, the command in step 4, to create remote port forwarding. I'll paste it on the attacker's machine. For this command here, R here stands for remote port forwarding. So this time, instead of opening a port on our machine, we are telling the victim's machine to open a port. We're basically saying open port 2222 on the victim's machine, and then forward anything that connects there back to my SSH port 22. So I'm going to press enter, and we get this remote port forwarding established. So now 192.168.1.100 on port 2222 forwards back to the attacker's SSH service. So this is a reverse tunnel we've created. Instead of the attacker connecting indirectly, the tunnel is created securely through SSH. Now the important question here is, in the real world, would a normal user actually run these commands to give an attacker access? And the answer is no. Normal users will not intentionally open reverse SSH channels for attackers. The technique in itself is not malicious or it's not bad. Remote port forwarding is used legitimately in IT support or remote server management. So the command in itself is not evil, but it's just a tool. What makes it dangerous is how attackers use it. So attackers would usually compromise a machine first, maybe through phishing or malware or a weak password. And once they're inside, they'll create a reverse tunnel back to their own machine. So that way, if firewalls block incoming connections, the connection is already established from the inside. And that will allow them to maintain access and avoid detection. Sometimes the attackers would use things like social engineering. They'll trick someone into running a command by pretending to be an IT support person. So they'll say something like, please copy and paste this to fix your system or the problem you're having. But that command might secretly open a reverse tunnel. So the key takeaway from this lab is that remote port forwarding is not malicious by itself. But in the wrong hands, it can become a backdoor. And if you understand local and remote port forwarding, you understand how attackers move inside networks. And if you understand how they move, you'll be able to defend against them.